Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is Tanya Torno, Deputy Director with the county's Housing and Workforce Solutions Continuum of Care Division. You are here for our general membership meeting. Both our chair and vice chair are on and ready to go. Greg and Karen, thank you guys for always being so supportive. If you haven't yet, we want to encourage you. I see people are starting to sign themselves in. Please use the chat box to type in your name and the agency you're representing so we know who is in the house with us today. Welcome, welcome, and we'll be getting started here shortly.
We'll give just a minute or two, let people in. Let's see, Josh is still getting people in.
Morning, everyone. Just a reminder, please mute your microphones if you're not speaking, and put your name and organization that you represent in the chat box, please.
Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. We've got a pretty full agenda, but it's a lot of great information. So welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining. We will call this meeting to order, the May 25th Continuum of Care meeting at 10:03. And new members, we have Homemade, Inland Empire, welcome, and new voting members, the City of Banning, and the Citizen Advocates for Senior and Homeless Solutions. So welcome, both the new members, and congratulations to the two of you on becoming new voting members. We'll move to item number 2, which is the approval of the April 27th CoC meeting minutes. Does anybody have any corrections or additions? If so, raise.
Hey, Greg.
Yes, we got to do roll. We got to do roll. Yeah, sorry about
that. So again, just as a reminder for those of you who are familiar, and new information for those of you who maybe a first time on this meeting, we are going to do attendance of the voting members. Any other members or attendees that would like their attendance recorded, please just make sure you put your name and organization in the chat. So, alternatives to domestic violence. Bank Corners.
Here.
Citizen Advocates for Senior Homeless Solutions, or Cassius. Yeah, I see you here.
Here.
Thank you. CityNet.
Here.
Jessica. City of Banning. Yep. Hemet.
Under Krupa, City of Hemet, I am here.
Linda. City
Can
of Lake
you hear
Elsinore.
me?
Yes.
Thank you.
City of Lake Elsinore. City of Menifee.
Good morning, everyone. Edna LeBron with City of Menifee.
Thank you, Edna. City of Moreno Valley.
Present.
City of Marietta.
Lindsay here.
Lindsay. City of Harupa Valley. City of Paris. City of Riverside.
Michelle Davis, present. Good morning.
Thank you, Michelle. Good morning. City of San Jacinto, Harp Outreach.
Robin Gilliland Consulting here.
Thank you, Robin. Coachella Valley Association of Governments.
Good morning, everyone. Anise Smith, present.
Thank you, Anise. Coachella Valley Rescue Mission. You here, Kimberly. Community Health Association Inland Southern Region. From the Norco region, Karen.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Department of Public Social Services.
Morning, Josh. Renee Huxted.
Desert AIDS Project.
Yeah, they need to open CalWorks up to food stamp recipients.
Desert AIDS Project. The Desert Healthcare District.
Yes, Jana True, Senior Program Officer, present. Thank you.
Donna informed us that she would not be present at a second.
And Josh, it's Jana, Jana, and then last name's True, Trew.
Faith in Action. Hill AIDS Project.
Good morning, Jose, FAP.
Jose. High Expectations Development Corporation.
Nikisha High, present. And Marcus Robinson is also present.
You say that was Marcus.
Yep.
And then Inland Empire Health Plan. I saw you put your name in the chat.
Good morning, Ben Howdigi, present.
Thank you. Jewish Family Services of San Diego.
Good morning. This is Becky.
Becky. Lake Elsinore Unified School District.
Good morning, Deneen here.
Thank you. Lighthouse Social Service Centers.
Good morning, Karen Younglis, present.
Thank you, Karen. Lutheran Social Services.
Good morning, Denise Marshall, present.
Thank you. Martha's Village and Kitchen.
Linda Barak here.
Linda. Mary Erickson Community Housing. Mental Health Systems.
Franco, present.
Thank you. Mercy House. Alina Healthcare.
Good morning, Jackie Portilla, present.
Jackie. Operation Safe House.
Good morning, Sandra Dunn here.
Ministries.
Good morning, Leonard Jarman.
Career Works. Riverside County Hot Team. Riverside University Health System Behavioral Health.
Good morning, Marcus Cannon.
Marcus. Riverside Unified School District. Shelter from the Storm.
Present. Good morning.
Thank you, Angelina. Step Up on Second. Transgender Health and Wellness Center.
J.M. Kennedy, present.
JM. United Way of Inland Valleys.
Good morning. It's Danielle.
You. U.S. Vets.
Good morning, Nicole Murray.
You. VA Loma Linda Healthcare.
Good morning. This is Oscar Ramirez. Thank you.
Thank you, Oscar. And Valley Restart.
I'm here. This is Susan.
we do have quorum, and I see some other members putting their name in the chat. So I'll monitor that and update attendance accordingly, but we do have quorum.
Perfect. Thank you, Josh. All right, we will go back to item number 2, consent items, the April 27th CoC meeting minutes. If there's any additions or changes, raise your hand. And if not, I will entertain a motion to accept.
Michelle Davis with the City of Riverside, to make a motion.
Thanks, Michelle. Is there a second?
Linda Krupa Hammett will second.
Thank you, Linda. Any further discussion? All right, not seeing any. Is there any opposition? If so, raise your hand. And any abstentions? All right, that motion passes. Thank you. We will move on to item number 3, public comments. Joshua, did we have any written comments?
We do not.
Great. And are there any public comments? If so, raise your hand. These are non-agenda items. So. All right, not seeing any. We'll move on to number 4, item new business, and we are going to have a Laura's Law presentation. Take it away, my friend Marcus Cannon.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Greg. Marcus Cannon, RUHS Behavioral Health. And I've got one of our team here, Sean Frederickson, and he and I will actually co-present this. Sean is our supervisor, our behavioral health services supervisor over this program, as well as a couple other of our court-involved programs, such as mental health court, veterans treatment court, homeless court, mental health diversion, anything that has to do with the courts and mediated sentencing. Sean is typically our supervisor who supervises that team. And so he's got a team of clinical therapists, case managers, peers who work with these individuals to write reports for the court, to be part of creating a treatment plan, and then ultimately to help carry out that treatment plan so that people can participate in the treatment that the court expects of them in return for whatever the court is offering in terms of reduced fines, fees, sentencing, etc. So we wanted to share with you about Laura's Law. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about this at the state level. Josh, if you could go to the next slide. And I can give some of the high-level overview. We'll save time at the end for questions about Laura's Law. But we just wanted to tell you a little bit about what it is and what it isn't. And I think the biggest takeaway that I would want people to have is that Laura's Law is a tool, and it's just one tool, but it's not a silver bullet by any stretch of the imagination. Josh, would you like me to share my screen, or?
That would actually be very helpful. Struggling with some internet today.
Okay, I think I've heard that from a few people. Let me pull it up real quick. All right, hopefully everyone can see that.
Yeah, it's up, Marcus.
All right, thank you, Greg. So Laura's Law is the colloquial name. The technical name of this program is Assisted Outpatient Treatment. This is a slide that details who can request a Laura's Law referral for someone. It can be immediate family members, adults residing with the individual, the director of a treating agency or facility, the treating licensed mental health professional, a peace officer, or judicial officers. So as you can see, there's a broad range of people who can request a Laura's Law referral on behalf of a client. Here's the criteria for Laura's Law. They need to be county resident, at least 18 years of age. They need to be suffering from a mental illness. There has to be a clinical determination that the consumer is unlikely to survive safely in the community without supervision. they've been offered an opportunity to participate in the development of their treatment plan, and they continue to demonstrate inability or unwillingness to meaningfully engage. Their condition is substantially deteriorating. Laura's Law would be the least restrictive placement that's appropriate and feasible. And in view of the consumer's treatment history and current behavior, they're in need of assisted outpatient treatment in order to prevent a relapse or deterioration that would be likely to result in grave disability or serious harm to himself or herself or to others, as defined by Section 5150 of the Welfare and Institutions Code. So what all that means is that this is a relatively high bar. And I think that's one of the misconceptions that people have as they hear about Laura's Law, and sometimes people think, oh, this is our broad brush, just any homeless person should be referred to Laura's Law. But as you can see from these criteria, that's certainly not the case. This is for a small subset of people with truly severe mental illness who are not able or not willing to engage in treatment, and where that illness is so severe that it's causing them to be a danger to themselves or others or gravely disabled. This is a little bit more about that criteria. There's really two options. In addition to meeting all those previous things, the consumer has to have been hospitalized at least twice within the last 36 months, or that their mental illness has resulted in one or more acts of serious and violent behavior toward another within the last 48 months. We have a referral line set up where people can call to make referrals. And we want and need summary information from the person making the referral. So it's not, this needs to, if we go back to that slide about who can refer, it needs to be somebody who really knows this consumer. It's not intended for sort of the drive-by referral. Like, I saw Greg camping under the bridge, like, I think he should be in Laura's Law. This really should come from the treating provider, peace officer, family member, somebody who knows that consumer intimately. This is a bit more for internal, but I think some of this bears repeating even for external audiences. That a referral does not guarantee acceptance into the program. And in a minute, we'll talk about the steps to the process. So here's really where the process starts. If we receive a referral, there's this multidisciplinary treatment team that you can see here, that the team will conduct outreach and screening. Ultimately, the team, a clinical therapist, will write an assessment, and that assessment goes to a committee to ensure that this is an appropriate referral. And if the committee finds that it's an appropriate referral, they send it to our licensed psychologists to do the final report that would go into the court petition. The reason for this is ultimately, if the court awards or the court orders Laura's Law, we've now mandated somebody to participate in mental health treatment, which a lot of us on this call might say, great, we needed this already. But from a civil liberties perspective, there's obviously a very strong concern that anytime a court comes and tells you something that you must do about your health, we know that that becomes very contentious very quickly. I think the last couple of years, gave us a good example of that. COVID as one example, right? Anytime a court or some outside body comes and tells me what I can or can't do with my health, that becomes very political, very fast. So same with Laura's Law. So there's this system of checks and balances where the clinical team writes the assessment, writes the evaluation, that ultimately is going to go to court for them to make a determination. But we have to make sure that the referrals that we're taking to the court are ones that the court is likely to say that, this is absolutely the least restrictive thing to do. So the screening is face-to-face. The team will make efforts to engage the consumer, and this is based on the statute, based on the legislation. This legislation states that we have to do anything we can to get this consumer to engage in services voluntarily, to attempt to avoid having the court order them or have the court mandate them. And so if the consumer does say, oh, great, I didn't know these services were available. Yes, I want to engage. That petition will not go before the court because the consumer has engaged voluntarily in treatment. The review committee will determine that that it's an appropriate one to refer to the court. The psychologist we talked about a little bit already, the psychologist would write that final assessment for the court. And then here's really the petition process of what would happen in court. County council would file a petition, which triggers the public defender being notified and patients' rights being notified. The consumer can waive their hearing and just immediately accept the treatment plan that behavioral health has written. But if the consumer refuses and says, no, I don't want to participate in Laura's Law, then the court proceedings continue. The consumer has the right to legal counsel. The court's going to hear testimony and recommendations. And there's only a few reasons whereby the hearing can be conducted without the consumer present. Two real options. The court can deny the petition and say no, either the consumer is not severe enough. The court can say not all voluntary options have been exhausted, that the outpatient system of care needs to do more or try to do more to engage this consumer, or the court can grant the petition. The initial treatment plan is mandated for 6 months. The consumer would be linked to one of our full service partnership programs. And this last point, I think, is really the most significant one to talk about here. And again, we'll have time for questions at the end, because I know some of these points may not make a lot of sense initially. If the consumer refuses to comply with the ordered treatment, there's a misconception that the treatment team can automatically write a 5150 hold. So hypothetically, the consumer stops taking their medication, or the consumer doesn't come to their appointments. Initially, people were believing that then that person could automatically be put on a hold and be hospitalized involuntarily. That's not true. The only reason, even a Laura's Law consumer, the only reason that somebody can be hospitalized involuntarily is if they're imminently a danger to themselves, danger to other, or gravely disabled. And this is where, as a county behavioral health department, we're operating the Laura's Law program, but to put it in sort of layperson's terms, there's not a lot of teeth. There's not a lot to make somebody do something they don't want to do, because if someone doesn't come to treatment, doesn't take their medication, we can't automatically hospitalize them against their will. And then the second bullet point, failure to comply with the Laura's Law order alone is not a grounds, again, for involuntary commitment or hospitalization, and there's no civil or criminal penalties for violation of a Laura's Law order or treatment plan. So it really depends on I guess you could say, some people use a phrase like the power of the bench or the power of this black robe, that if I'm the consumer and I show up in court and the Honorable, Judge Roper is presiding, and she says, like, Marcus, you will go to treatment. I order you to do so, and bangs her gavel, that I'm now going to get in line because I've been ordered to by the court. But ultimately, if I say, no, I won't, there's no civil or criminal penalty, and I can't be automatically hospitalized for refusing. The treatment team does have to file an affidavit every 60 days outlining that the consumer still meets criteria. The consumer is entitled to a hearing every 60 days if they want to challenge that. They have the right to habeas corpus. The good news is if the consumer does participate in treatment, it's an intensive treatment. It's a very small caseload, so 1 to 10 staff to consumer ratio. I know lots of our case managers in our various programs would love to only have 10 consumers that they're responsible for caring for. There's co-occurring substance use disorder treatment if that's needed. There's 24/7 on-call staff available, field-based services, peer-run services, and other housing and vocational services. This talks a little bit about what our full-service partnership programs are. These are our most intensive, resource-rich outpatient programs. This is the type of program that one of these consumers would be connected to. You can see some of the services they offer, but the goal is to meet really any need that somebody has. There's after-hours crisis support. We list some of the addresses and the clinic locations. This is an example of a flyer that we've been distributing. But I think that's the challenge on our part, is that there's great services available if a consumer agrees to participate, but there's a bit of a catch-22 in that most of the people that get referred and approved for Laura's Law are people who have really severe needs and really severe impairments. Those are also oftentimes the people who are least likely to then follow through with services and treatment. And yet when they fail to follow through and we notify the court of that, there's no teeth there. So it's one tool, but that's why I want to share with everybody that it's not a silver bullet tool. So I think that's a good place to pause, and let's see what questions Sean or I can answer for folks.
Thank you, Marcus.
Yes, sir.
Any questions? Going to get off easy today, Marcus.
I know.
I have one.
Yes.
Marcus, I don't know if you are able to, at this point in time, answer this, but one question is there anything the CFC can do to support you all in this implementation of Laura's Law? That's the first thing. If there's anything more we could be doing to support you. And the second thing is there any reflection you can provide in terms of what difference there would be if Care Court is adopted by the legislature?
Sure. I think in terms of what the CoC can do as it relates to Laura's Law, I would say just continuing on the mission of creating more housing options. That is a challenge for us in all of our collaborative court programs, is we have to find housing for individuals. And as you know, that's a struggle. I would also encourage us to consider and to remember the need for transitional housing or different types of housing that provide services. Ultimately, I think our goal for all of our consumers is full independence, full self-sufficiency, and permanent supportive housing. But these consumers that are getting referred into Laura's Law that either meet or nearly meet this definition of grave disability, where they cannot care for their daily needs, tend to not do well initially in permanent supportive housing. There's not enough structure and there's not enough face-to-face time with staff. So I know that most of our state and federal funding is prioritizing permanent supportive housing, but we still see a need for these interim type programs that have more staff support and to some degree more structure. That's what I would say the CoC can do. Care Court is still developing. That's SB 1338. The legislation is still being worked on. In some ways, Care Court really, as far as it's outlined, is very, very similar. And so the California Behavioral Health Directors Association has written a number of letters to the state asking for clarification to that very question. What is Care Court going to do that Laura's Law doesn't do? Care Court, the other piece around both of these pieces of legislation is that there's no funding for the county behavioral health departments in the proposed in Laura's Law or in the proposed Care Court legislation. I know lots of you have heard our director, Dr. Chang, talk about our annual funding shortage, which is around $150 million annually that we're short. So to be given a new mandate, you're going to go out and serve more homeless individuals who are not willing to participate in treatment, because if they're willing, then they don't go through the court process anyways. So it's serving people who up front say, no, I don't want this, serving them in an intensive fashion, being told by the court that we're going to serve them, but with no additional funding. So that's the biggest piece. The biggest question mark for us with Care Court is, one, how do we pay for these additional staff? And two, how do we, even if we can figure out how to do that, what is this going to do for us that Laura's Law doesn't already do? So that I think, Karen, would be really what I would say about Care Court. Are there any other questions that I can answer for the group?
But before we move on, there's one thing I want to say just for our members, if it's helpful. We this week, our mayor is signing a letter to members of the legislature, and in that letter, indicating our support for Care Court, we also did reference that all counties are not equal in terms of funding, and referenced Riverside County Behavioral Health funding deficit of $150 million a year. And I know Greg, is actively involved with our legislative working group. We're going to actually do something like that to take a formal position in the continuum of care. But for those of you that are cities out there, nonprofits, whoever, there's an opportunity for us to communicate to the legislature. So
if I can add on, Marcus, too, it's not just, staffing and all that too, but the guidance within the bill, of course, is housing first and placement into housing. And if we don't have units, that's another challenge too. So where's the funding from the state? And especially for places like Riverside County that tend to be penalized because we don't have high transit oriented or climate impacted issues around housing dollars. So just my little soapbox there, but Gina, question.
Yeah. From my own personal experience, I had a problem with a minor. But the California law at the time had said that at a certain age, age 14, I was told at that time, that they have the choice to come and go as they please, which in my case, I had to look out of state to try and get the help that was needed. How does that kind of mesh in for the teens, I guess? I understand what with adults this is powerful, but is it affecting teens in the same way?
I don't think I'm the best person to answer that. Obviously, there's a variety of children's voluntary service programs, and then there are children that are ordered through courts to participate in, or families that are ordered to participate as a condition of either a reunification plan or foster care. But I couldn't answer that in any specific detail for you, Gina. I'm sorry.
More on the parental side, they're the ones that did something, therefore the child goes into foster care. I'm talking about the child himself, him or herself, needs help, serious help.
Yeah.
Not much to do.
I mean, I think that, I would say if you have a child that is in need of serious help, to contact DPSS through their CPS services. And then if it's a mental health condition, contact behavioral health and let folks in our children's division talk to you about what programs are available. And if you need a specific contact, Gina, feel free to reach out and I can connect you to somebody from our children's services division.
Okay. Well, I have to anyway, because I was in Los Angeles, so a whole different mess. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? I just add on to, Marcus, you can probably agree too, is, Dr. Chang's push for the recovery centers, the expansion of those are going to be a key tool that, to your point, is the transitional beds and the ability for treatment services. I think we should be proud as a county of our expansion of our behavioral health and the integration within our 13 community health centers. And, to your point, Gina, that's an in, is if families, and especially young individuals are, getting physical health in the community health centers, there's that bridge there for the behavioral health that's specifically on site. And I think we just continue to follow this model. And to Karen's point and Marcus's point and continue to advocating for looking at the realignment dollars that, aren't given to the county as a fair share. So I think we're on the right track. So great presentation, Marcus. Appreciate it so much. So
thank you, Greg. Happy to help.
All right, moving on to item number B. It's rapid rehousing toolkit and presentation. And the reason I asked to have this on the agenda is we know that I think Echo probably in HWS. We know that some of our programs that have rapid rehousing dollars haven't been able to spend them down. And I know, there's challenges within, of course, housing units and all that, but I wanted to have Karen Younglow with Lighthouse Social Service Center give us a brief presentation on their rapid rehousing activities and the utilization of the federal housing toolkit. So Karen.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks so much, Greg, for asking Lighthouse to do this presentation. I appreciate it. Tanya Johnson was going to be joining me, but she's not able to join me today, so it'll just be me today. And portions of the presentation this morning are based on, as Greg said, the toolkit that was put out by the National Alliance to End Homelessness on rapid rehousing, their new rapid rehousing toolkit. But I will say that SSVF has been using a lot of these activities and resources for a while now. So next slide, please. Oh, great. Okay, next slide. Thanks.
He's pulling it up right now.
Okay. All right, great. So I wanted to begin just by giving a brief overview on what is rapid rehousing. So rapid rehousing is a housing first intervention. It's designed to help households quickly exit homelessness and move into permanent housing. There are three key components to rapid rehousing. The first is housing identification. The second is move-in and rent assistance. And the third is rapid rehousing case management and services. Next slide, please. It's really important to understand that rapid rehousing is a permanent housing modality, and it's been demonstrated to be effective in getting people who are experiencing homelessness into permanent housing and keeping them there. And this intervention has also been proven to be very effective for people who traditionally have been perceived as more difficult to serve. And as I mentioned, Lighthouse is a supportive services for veteran families provider, and we also have an adult reentry program. And programs such as SSVF and adult reentry really have demonstrated that people with high tenancy barriers and those who have no income or very limited income can obtain and retain permanent housing with the assistance of rapid rehousing programs. Really, the key to success is individualized and flexible assistance, progressive engagement strategies, and also the ability to make program modifications when needed. What we need to do is we are trying to connect folks to housing, and then when they are stabilized in housing, then they can really address other issues such as employment issues, mental health, substance abuse, physical health issues, because we all know, that when someone is living on the street and experiencing homelessness, they're not thinking, hey, I need to go and check in with my mental health therapist, or wow, I really need to go see my substance abuse treatment provider. They're more concentrating on their immediate needs. Hey, where am I going to sleep? Where am I going to eat? And where am I going to go to the bathroom? So we really need to get people into housing and stabilized in housing. And then we can look at helping them to address those other needs and also issues that might have led to their homelessness. I'd also like to briefly touch on Housing First, since we know that rapid rehousing is a Housing First intervention. So next slide. So I'm sure that, as everyone knows, I just want to quickly, touch on it. Housing First establishes housing stability without preconditions. We don't screen out participants based on having, too little income, active substance abuse, misuse, criminal history, domestic violence, law enforcement involvement. Housing First services are not predicated on the completion or even the participation in treatment services. The Housing First model identifies housing stability as the primary issue facing the individual or the family and works to quickly place them into permanent housing. And then, as I said, those other issues affecting the household are addressed once folks are in housing through wraparound services and also through ongoing case management services. Housing First is a philosophy that values flexibility and individualized supports, client choice, and autonomy. But I do want to mention that Housing First is not solely about housing. It's also about support services, and really support services should be a part of any rapid rehousing program. And those services can be either formal or informal. So they can have formal services such as getting them connected to their doctor, substance abuse treatment, mental health services. But it's also about looking at what informal supports folks need, like connecting them back with family, friends, a faith group. What other community wraparound services do they need? And really the goal of Housing First is to assist in removing barriers to accessing permanent housing. Next slide. So as I mentioned earlier, there are three main components of rapid rehousing services: housing identification, move-in and rent assistance, and also rapid rehousing case management. So I want to touch on the first one, which is housing identification. And really our program activities really should include the continuous recruitment of landlords and units in our community. And I know that that is really, really hard. I think we're all struggling with finding, affordable and appropriate housing for the clients that we're serving. But we also need to kind of think outside the box and look at, studio units, for folks, shared housing, room rents, and also negotiating with our landlords to help our participants access housing. And how can we do that creatively? Just want to give one quick example. We had a veteran who's in our SSVF program, and we were able to assist her with increasing her income. And she's increased her income so much that now we're not able to serve her anymore because she's over income, of course, for SSVF. And so we needed to close her because we were not going to be able to recertify her. We thought that she was going to be able to get a HUD-VASH voucher, but she was over income for HUD-VASH also. So we found housing for her, and this was right up to the time that we were going to have to close her. And we were prepared to pay the security deposit for her, and then she would continue. She had enough income to continue with paying her rent. So the housing navigator, the Lighthouse Housing Navigator, was talking with the landlord and trying to kind of work out her moving in quickly. And the landlord said, oh, on her credit check, popped all these things. And, now we're thinking about not, allowing her to move in since she doesn't have a voucher, and Lighthouse isn't going to be able to continue providing ongoing rental assistance, even though she has enough income, but that's, kind of what that was the landlord and the property manager stance. So kind of through talking and advocating for the client, we said to the landlord, okay, we'll pay double deposit. Of course, the landlord wanted triple deposit. SSBF, as Rashana knows, does not allow you to pay triple deposit. So we negotiated and said, okay, if we pay double deposit and then the client also pays a deposit, can we then get her, into housing? We also talked about some other things that we might be able to do in terms of light touch support, and we were able to get her into housing. So again, that negotiation with landlords is really, really important. As I mentioned, Lighthouse employs housing navigators who assist program participants in the housing search, location, and acquisition of housing. But their job doesn't stop there. They're also helping folks with getting the documents that are necessary to secure housing. They're helping in the housing search. And that doesn't mean, helping in the housing search doesn't mean, hey, client, go on to your computer or your phone or whatever and look up housing units and then let me know. It doesn't mean that we're just giving them list of available housing. It sometimes means that we're putting folks in our car or we're meeting them at the unit and we're walking them through the unit, helping them with talking to the property manager. All of those kinds of things are really, really important to help our folks get housed. Also helping our participants with completing the housing applications. A lot of them don't know how to answer some of those questions, that puts them in the best light. I'm not talking about saying something that's false, but answering the question appropriately that really puts you as the tenant in the best light. Also, we're helping our clients in that those first 1 to 3 or 4 month time that they're moving into housing and stabilizing in housing. It's really important that they continue to have the support of the housing navigator along with the housing case manager. And then finally, for us, our housing navigators also have to be knowledgeable about landlord responsibilities, kind of helping, our clients, but also our landlord partners. And it's a hard line to walk, that our housing navigators have, because they're advocates for our clients. They're working to get our clients into housing, but they're also advocates for our landlord partners. We want to make sure that, our relationship with our landlords are good, because of course we're going to have to come back to them. Oftentimes, landlords are even contacting us if there are tenancy issues even after the rapid rehousing services have ended. So again, just walking that fine line of being an advocate for the client as well as an advocate for the landlord is very, very important. Next slide. Wanted to also just highlight some other critical components of housing identification. The first is gathering that background information from your folks. Seriously, their evictions, credit issues, all of those kinds of things. You shouldn't be hearing those from the property management or the landlord or when you're going to do the application. You need to be having these discussions with your clients early on so that you can help them with answering those questions. And then also with where they're going to even begin to look for housing. If you know that the person has several evictions in their history, then taking them to, a large kind of corporate apartment complex where they're going to do a deep dive, into their background is not the best choice. Looking at some of the smaller mom and pop shops that probably might not look, at that background in the same way. You might have a different relationship with a smaller housing unit. So really knowing that background is really important. And also defining appropriate, realistic housing options. Okay, I get it. I know that client choice is a big piece of rapid rehousing, and I'm all for client choice. But the reality, if you have $680 or, $1,000, to pay in rent, Rancho, Menifee, Murrieta, a 2-bedroom apartment is not going to be realistic, for you. And I know, I know sometimes our clients are, this is the only place, that I want to live. But we have to be having those conversations, and that really dovetails into the idea of engaging the household in problem-solving conversations at the start of enrollment. Okay, so as soon as you get them talking about what are some of the challenges that we're going to have, with housing, we understand that this might be where you're going to want to live, but here's the reality of it. And really saying to the client, hey, you know what? We are partners in this. And so you are responsible for, finding a place to live, and I'm going to partner with you, but it's not my job just to find a place for you and move you in. We're solving this problem together. And of course, we need to do active listening, coaching, motivational interviewing, all of those kinds of things to engage in these problem-solving conversations. And the other thing I want to just highlight, please consider shared housing. Shared housing is not the lesser option. I know that a lot of us, myself included, it'd kind of be like, okay, well, you didn't get this housing, they denied you here, you didn't get, okay, now let's look at a shared housing option. No, we need to start looking at shared housing options in the beginning of our housing search, not at the end. And I just want to say a little, I love the fact that Karen was asking, hey, what can the CoC do, to help when Marcus was doing his great presentation. One thing I do want to say is that in San Bernardino County, and you guys know that Lighthouse serves both Riverside and San Bernardino County. We did a 12-week training with the Shared Housing Institute, and we're really trying to really put shared housing in our, in our housing options. But you have to be trained on, how to do that. We are piloting some things in our homeless veteran community planning group, but the CoC might want to think about, really doing, some training options and looking at some of the great work that the Shared Housing Institute is doing in order to really, really seriously put shared housing into our housing options. And again, remember, there are multiple ways that people can share housing, through formal arrangements and informal arrangements. Also, I want to encourage folks to hire housing navigation staff that's dedicated only to housing navigation. They're not trying to do case management and housing navigation, because housing navigation is a specific job and it takes specific skills to do that. And I would say, whenever you can, try to hire folks with backgrounds in real estate and property management. Tanya Johnson, who's now a deputy director for Lighthouse, but she came to us as a housing navigator, and she had a background in property management. And I'll tell you, I'm a social worker. I don't know the lingo and the language of property management. You need to have somebody on your staff that knows knows how to talk to property managers and landlords, knows also some of the laws behind it. And then finally, understanding the needs of the landlord. And again, someone with a background in property management, has that skill. So what's important to your landlord? Is it important just to get the rent on time? Like, I don't care about nothing else. Just make sure I get paid rent on time. Okay, so certain people will take there. Is it, they have, their property, I got to make sure that my property is well taken care of, and, and this and that, so, are they going to be good neighbors? We don't take any kind of, vacancies or evictions, so, I think knowing your landlords and knowing that your property managers well is really, and understanding their needs is very, very important. Okay, next slide. All right. The next core component is move-in and rental assistance. And certainly it's the goal to provide short and medium-term assistance to households. And we do that through financial support. And that could be paying their security deposit, move-in expenses, rent, utility arrears, rental utility deposits, whatever cost is going to help the participant to obtain and sustain housing. Really the intent of the rental assistance component is to really quickly resolve the immediate housing crisis. But I do want to say this. While financial assistance to the participant is important, it really needs to be individualized and person-centered. So what we need to say is, okay, yes, our program is 12 months, all right? But everybody doesn't need 12 months of assistance. Somebody might come to you and they've already found housing, they're working, maybe they have a portion of their security deposit. So we need to look at that family as individuals. So we need to say, hey, okay, great. Let's help you get into this housing. We'll pay the deposit. You pay, your utility arrears. We'll pay 1 or 2 months, of rent in order just to kind of get you, on your feet. And then guess what? That person can graduate from your program. They don't need the continue. Just because you can pay a year doesn't necessarily mean you need to pay a year. Now, I will say, as the administrator for a rapid rehousing program, it's challenging when you're doing this because, we also have the responsibility of expending our funding, for our contracts. So kind of when you have this up and down and, they're not always paying, you're not always paying 12 months of rent, it can be difficult. So what you just need to do is just continually be talking with your finance folks, and updating, kind of your rental assistance line, and just really looking and watching that, and then of course the goal is to help households until they're no longer imminently at risk of becoming homeless in the near term. Next slide. So I want to talk a bit just about progressive engagement, and I just kind of touched on that. So what progressive engagement means is that you are providing, probably at first just enough for the household to obtain and eventually sustain their housing on their own. But again, if they don't need 12 months, they can do it with 3 months or 4 months. Then it's really understanding that, talking with the client, because of course clients talk and they're going to say, well, wait a minute, how come so and so got 12 months and I'm only going to get 4 months? And really having those conversations with them about the fact that they don't need that long-term financial intervention because they are able to be sustained on their own. However, of course, if a household needs more assistance, then looking at providing that additional assistance as well as proactive case management to help them to further stabilize in housing. And then, of course, we all have, clients where, you've provided the maximum amount of financial intervention that you can. You've linked them to services, you've linked them to wraparound services, but it still doesn't seem that they're really going to be sustainable. So really those folks, they probably need a higher level of care. I know that we don't have a lot of, housing choice vouchers, maybe permanent supportive housing, is the answer, in order to help those folks not fall into homelessness once the rapid rehousing has ended. And remember, people do maintain their homeless status while they are receiving rapid rehousing services. So even though they're in housing, really important to know, if you're in a rapid rehousing program, you do maintain your homeless status. Next slide. And then the final component really is housing case management and services. Case management services should be participant driven, and really the participants need to be active in their case planning and goal setting. We need to be respectful of what the participant wants out of the program and services rather than what we want out of the program and services, and also what we decide they need. Remember, folks also get to make their own decisions, and sometimes they make bad decisions, and they get to do that. So we need to allow the case plan to be driven by the consumer, and we need to also help them to understand that they are an active participant in this. We're not just handing them housing. They need to be a part of finding the housing and getting into the housing and stabilizing in the housing. And also, the case management should be flexible in its intensity, meaning it's based on, as I've said, I think a couple of times, it's based on the needs of the household. It can increase over time or decrease over time as it adjusts to the fluctuating needs of the participants. And I apologize, I just also wanted to go back. You don't have to go back a slide, Josh. I just wanted to mention one progressive engagement strategy that Lighthouse is using is maybe we will pay the first, if somebody's working and has income, maybe we'll pay the first 3 months of their rental subsidy 100%. But then during that 3 months, we're talking with them about for the next 3 months, then they're going to assume some of the responsibility for paying for it. So maybe it's 30%, maybe they can't do 30%, maybe it's 10% or 20%, whatever that is. But progressively, the client is beginning to take on more of the financial responsibility for the rent, with the hope that, as we are then looking to transition them out, they are paying 80% or 100% of the rent. And we have been successful with that. Now, I will say again, sometimes it ebbs and flows because sometimes there's an emergency. And so maybe Lighthouse then has to pay 100% for this particular month, but then we try to quickly go back to the progressive engagement way of paying the rent. So I just wanted to mention that also. Okay. Oh, thanks, Josh. Next slide. So just wanted to focus on the case management objectives, certainly resolving the housing crisis as quickly as possible, utilizing a housing first approach. Also, it's very important to recognize trauma and use a trauma-informed and strength-based approach to case management. We know that homelessness is a crisis, and it's a major crisis. And oftentimes the household requires the case manager to understand the impact of that trauma and the stress on the participants. They may also be faced with some racial-based trauma related to their race or maybe other aspects of their identity. So really looking, at that and having a trauma-informed lens when you are providing services to folks. And then also in terms of looking at a strength-based approach, realizing, hey, you know what? It takes a lot of strength and a lot of courage and a lot of skill to survive on the street. And so helping clients to know, you know what, you got what it takes because you were able to already survive, and keep yourself safe on the street. So we're going to take all of those strengths, and we're going to help you get into housing and help you to stay into housing. So really, really emphasizing the strength-based approach. Also recognizing client choice. We've already talked about that. I know sometimes client choice is challenging, but we do want to recognize that the client has a choice and then help them to make the best choice for their housing. And then work with each household in an individualized and flexible way. Next slide. I think that might be it. Oh, okay. So thank you. I hope that some of this was helpful information. I'm open to any questions if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Karen. Fantastic presentation. So any questions for Karen? I think you covered it so thoroughly, you're not going to get any.
Okay,
I do,
thanks. Okay,
I do one from Geneva.
yes.
Yes, good morning. This is my first COC meeting, and I got a lot of great information. I am the new Basic Needs Coordinator for Mount San Jacinto College, and if those who don't know, they're going to be implementing basic needs centers in all community colleges, which our vision is to have like a one-stop shop for all of our students, especially those who are facing serious challenges in their lives and education because of homelessness situations. So my question to you, Karen, and thank you for all that information, is that would how is your referral process other than us calling you directly? Do we have the client call you? How does that process look like for a student that that needs to be housed rapidly?
Well, thank you so much for that question. The client can call us, but what we're going to say to the client is that they do need to go through the CES. So we would want the client to first contact our coordinated entry system so that then they can be prioritized and they can be sent to a rapid rehousing provider. If they call us, that's no problem because there's no wrong door in Riverside County. So what we'll do is then we will refer them to the coordinated entry system. And, we work really, really well and really closely with the coordinated entry system. So if you have students, I would suggest that you would have them contact. And Josh, maybe we can give out that information. I know it's on the website, but maybe just put that information in the chat in terms of how they contact coordinated entry. But after that, then they'd be prioritized, and then their information and the referral would then come to the best rapid rehousing provider for that person. So, if they're a family, then they would come to someone who's has family services. If they're an individual, it'd be individual. The idea is that they don't have to do all the calling around, because they could call Lighthouse and maybe we don't have an opening. Well, we want to take that burden off of the client. So we really want them to be prioritized within the CES.
Good answer, Karen. And welcome, Geneva. I'm glad you're here. I hope we continue to participate. So Tanya, did you have a comment or question?
I did. Thank you, Greg. I just wanted to thank Karen for her presentation. Karen, I have great admiration for you and all the work that you and your team are doing at Lighthouse. I don't know if
Thank you.
Many people know that Karen developed Lighthouse Social Services on her own, and I just cannot say enough about this organization. They are featured in our CoC staff report. I encourage you guys to check out the success story. We highlight a young adult who was experiencing homelessness. On top of that, was undocumented, so had that as an extra barrier, preventing her from really being able to regain housing quickly. And Karen and her team stepped in, and I think on the same day, if I'm not mistaken, or the next day, were able to help her find housing. So I just want to thank you. And I know since I've been with a part of the CoC, I joined in 2014. You have been one of the leaders that I have looked up to, and I'm really like hearing about the shared housing program in San Bernardino, and I want to take you up on your idea to incorporate a similar training in Riverside County. We would welcome it. So Karen, anything you can do to help us connect the dots there, we welcome it. But thank you, good work, and truly, truly a fan of progressive engagement and making sure that, we're coming alongside people and giving them the level of the support that they need. So good work. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Tanya. I really, really appreciate that. And thank you. And we couldn't do it without the wonderful support that we receive from your team as well as the CoC. So thanks. There was a question in the chat that I'm seeing, do we hire folks with lived experience? Oh, yes, 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 we certainly do. We have folks who have received services. I have folks on my board who received rapid rehousing services. We definitely have folks with lived experience. We hire a lot of veteran, so for our veterans program. So yes, I think that it's important because I think you have to have the voice of folks with lived experience when you're really trying to develop your programs and also to grow your programs. You need to hear kind of what's important. So yes, folks with lived experience is very important. And I just also, I know Karen has her hand up. I also wanted to encourage everyone to take a look at the toolkit. It is excellent. And I wasn't able to kind of cover everything, and it really goes in depth. So it's online, it's free. So please, you know, I encourage everyone to go ahead and take a look at it.
Thank you. Karen.
Karen, I just wanted to tell you that was so incredibly powerful. You guys are amazing. So many important nuggets that we can all learn from. And to our members in the continuum of care, I wanted to give you just a simple idea of how we can come up with even cost neutral ideas to improve housing placements. You heard Karen Younglow talk about the extreme value of shared housing. And I want to take you back to something that happened in our continuum of care. I had actually noticed in the Housing Authority's admin plan that for Section 8, at the time, shared housing was only limited to persons with disabilities. And I had talked about that with Tanya and with Michelle Davis, and we raised that as a potential policy option in the Policy Advocacy Committee. And of course, our County Housing Authority, Cindy Huey, they were so willing to make just a simple change. Didn't cost any money at all. And now look at how many doors are open for shared housing. And I can't emphasize it enough. Karen hit the nail on the head when she said, you know, think about shared housing in the beginning. So thank you for that, Karen. That was phenomenal.
You're welcome. And you know what, you just reminded me, Karen, guess what? And Tanya, you probably know this already, but now HUD-VASH will allow shared housing. So that is like that is huge because we never could do shared housing with HUD-VASH. So yes, thank you. So even HUD-VASH, you can do shared housing. So yeah, we've got to get that training in. Thank you.
Totally agree. So, and Josh, I think it'd be a good idea if you can hook up Geneva and Monique. So Monique maybe can give Geneva a little bit of overview of what services and how to contact. So it'd be great. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, well, Karen, I'm going to echo Tanya's words, and I won't repeat them all, but I just want to say when I started getting involved with the CoC 5 years ago now, I really saw how committed and passionate you were, and I just really want to applaud the work you do. And again, thank you for presenting today. I appreciate it so much.
Thanks so much, Greg. Appreciate it.
All right. Oh, looks like we might have a hand up. Sorry. Linda, I'm sorry. Did you have something?
Yes, I just want to comment on this presentation because it's extremely thorough, great information. And I will say that some of you know I've been working with a friend of mine trying to get them into housing because the rental unit they've been in for 6 or 8 years, it's a house and the landlord is selling it. They can afford some, but they can't afford a lot at this point because one of them has lost a job. I just gave this referral of Lighthouse to the lady, and her comment was, "I've never heard of them." And that is part of our problem, is that people in need don't necessarily know the resources, and we're not necessarily really good at getting that information out. So I told them to use my name and to use Karen's name because I said I was in a meeting on this presentation. And what they need is rental assistance. I mean, they can afford up to $1,200, but they can't afford the next level, which is only a few $100s a month, to get them into, as she put it, acceptable housing because they have children and pets, which is a real drawback in trying to get into housing. So I just wanted to let you all know I've given her this tip and told her to use my name, use the Continuum of Care name, use anything she can, because next Tuesday, this family of 4 will be homeless. So
Well,
thank you so much.
You're welcome,
Great
Linda.
presentation.
Thank you so much too. And you're so right. This is we're so busy doing the work. We're not busy enough telling about the work, you know. So that's true. I hear that. I hear that quite often. So, but thank you. Thanks for that referral too. And we'll be looking out for her call.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Linda, I totally agree with you too. And, you know, that's a lot of when Karen and I came on as leadership here, is wanted to really expose more of the activities of organizations, not only to inform the CoC, but hopefully that gets out. And, you know, we're experiencing over 80 people on every CoC meeting now, which is probably 3 times what we would get in person and we met in person. But additionally too, that's going to, you know, we're having conversations internally with HWS staff on, you know, better websites, better social media, better outreach, community outreach. That'll be a lot of my role in a new position as the community engagement and education. So we totally agree with you, and just letting you know we're working on it. So.
Very good. Thank you, all of you, for the help you've given so far. Really appreciate it.
All right, so seeing more, thanks again, Karen. We will move on to item number C, the CoC chair and vice chair elections. So we called out for nominations, and at last meeting, of course, I submitted the nomination for Karen Roper to assume my role. For those of you who may not know, I'm leaving the supervisor's office effective July 1st to join the amazing team at Housing and Workforce Solutions. I can't wait. I'd leave today if I could. But for that reason, I'd have a conflict as chair. So we need to elect a new chair. The only nomination we received was Karen Roper. And how the process will work is we're letting you know the nominations that were made, and then the staff will send out a link for voting, and then we'll be able to announce that once the vote tally is done. So our chair nominee is Karen Roper. And what we're going to do is allow the candidates to say a few words. So Karen, I'll have you say a few words, and then we'll go to the vice chair nominees.
Thank you so much. Normally I don't read from the script, but I don't want to forget anything. So I hope you guys just bear with me. It's not my style to read from the script. So here it goes. I just want to tell you all it's my honor to accept this nomination to serve as your chair. Over the past 2 years, I want you to know I have invested many hours working hard as your vice chair, and my commitment is to work even harder if I'm elected to be the chair. My vision is to take our continuum of care to the next level in terms of high performance, and we are on the right track with the implementation of our homeless action plan. I have a strong vision to build capacity in nonprofits and cities, see more funding to our region, and increase permanent supportive housing, shelter, and services. With respect to the homeless action plan, as your vice chair, I'm proud that I have the opportunity to work with the county staff and Greg to write very specific strategies in that plan to build capacity for nonprofits and cities. That's something that's very important to me to improve our overall system in terms of how it functions. When you hear me talk about the system that we're building in Corona, I just want you all to know it's not my goal to draw attention to myself or even the city of Corona. My heart is to share strategies with you guys that can be replicated so that you can focus on building political will, developing a systems-oriented approach, and building public-private partnerships so you can stretch your limited resources. That's so important for all of us. And Greg alluded to this. When we took office 2 years ago, we both had the same vision. Restructure the meetings to be more strategic for program and policy, expand our membership and voting membership especially. We have done that. You heard Greg say that. Take some of the more informational items and park them in the monthly continuum of care report so that the meetings can be more strategic. And also expand and enhance webinars to focus on best practices. And also this too was important, getting feedback from you all as the members. You are the most important thing. We're here to serve you. So we did that when we distributed a survey to you for you to give feedback about our meetings. Just as far as the goals that we had, I'm just super excited because we've accomplished so much in 2 years. I also wanted to tell you I was privileged to have an instrumental role to develop the Policy Advocacy Committee. And as you all know, it has 5 working groups, and that was a big goal that Greg and I had. And I wanted to tell you about another exciting policy opportunity that I had when I was working hard for you as your vice chair, and that is to take a best practice model to overcome NIMBY through our Good Neighbor Community Policy. And we actually established that through the Policy Advocacy Committee and rolled it out regionally. And then just a couple more things. For those of you that don't know about my career, I used to be the Director of Housing and Community Services in Orange County. So I did manage an entire continuum of care system. I'm familiar with all the HUD funding, housing authority programs, affordable housing development, and I've been able to take that experience to work hard for you to support the county staff and the continuum with that experience. And then you've heard me talk about this, but I'll just say it. I know Griselda talks about lived experience a lot, and I really appreciate that because I have it too. If you don't know, my father was seriously mentally ill, self-medicated, in and out of homelessness, and he committed suicide. And there was a lot of trauma in our family. I am really acquainted with the ACEs of trauma-informed care, and I was so happy that Karen Younglow talked about trauma-informed care because it is critical to the success of how we help our homeless neighbors. So I just want to close by saying, you know what my vision is? I want to make a difference, and it would be a privilege to serve as your chair. So sorry for reading from a script, but there you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen. All right, so we move on to the vice chair nominees, and we've had Donna Craig and Michelle Davis nominated. And Donna wasn't able to join us today, so I have a statement I'll read from her. But Michelle, if you're still on, I'll let you say a few words if you'd like.
I won't be as long as Karen. Sorry, I used to chair the CoC, which I was very honored to be able to support all the great work that our nonprofits and government agencies were able to do through the Continuum of Care and through the vice chair of the Policy and Advocacy Committee that I sit with, Karen. We've been able to kind of have those heart-to-heart discussions on, kind of gaps and needs and how we can move the needle. And I think we're having conversations too on how we can partner more with our city agencies that are at the table. As far as, missing programming and housing and how can we move the needle. So I accept the nomination that was provided, and I know Donna Craig will do a phenomenal job if she's elected as well. So I'll go ahead and turn it back to you, Greg.
All right, thanks, Michelle. And I definitely was honored to fill your shoes, and they were big ones to fill. So, all right, so Donna Craig, she's the Chief Program Officer for the Desert Healthcare District, and this is a special district government agency that serves the residents of the entire Coachella Valley in the 4th District. She's been with the district since 2004 and has been involved with many impactful healthcare initiatives and programs that have been implemented by, invested in through the expertise, wisdom of the district's elected board. The healthcare district, it keeps a very active role in the homeless crisis in the Coachella Valley. She wanted to thank the CoC board members for the consideration of the nomination for the vice chair. I personally can attest to the involvement not only of the healthcare district, but of Donna as program manager in the Coachella Valley Housing First program. They've made significant investments, literally $2 million in a matching collaborative fund for all 9 cities that contribute to the CV Housing First program, and continue to actually fund behavioral health initiatives and other programs. Specifically too, though, in 2017, the board, and a lot of this was driven by Donna, commissioned Barbara Poppy, who many of you are probably familiar with, to conduct a Coachella Valley homeless needs assessment. And this basically led to the implementation of our Housing First and collaborative efforts that I subcontracted with the Coachella Valley Association of Governments. And so she's very interested in continuing that work, not only in the Valley, but how we strengthen and continue to build the continuum of care. So she appreciates your consideration of her nomination. And so keep an eye out, voting members, for the ballot, and we will announce the winners once they're done. So, all right, moving on to item number D is the 2022 HUD CoC program review and evaluation process, policy and scorecards. That's a mouthful. I will turn it over. This is something we do annually before we do our evaluation. So turn it over to Jamie.
Thank you, Greg. Hello, everybody. Again, my name is Jamie Gibson. I am one of the senior program specialists here with the Continuum of Care Division, and wanted to bring to the table for you guys the fiscal year 2022 HUD CoC program review and evaluation process policies and the scorecards, which includes our renewal and new scorecards. Last year, we had a fantastic ad hoc group that worked on the development of our policies, in addition to the new format and layout to our new and renewal project scorecards. So with our ad hoc committee, we also had consulting from our HUD team, and it was suggested and advised that those tools that we currently have that were developed last year and presented in our June CoC meeting of 2021 are strong and should be passed on to using this year. And so what we've done, the CoC staff have gone through and made some minor revisions and edits to basically grammatical, changing some dates for fiscal 2022 and providing some additional clarification on scoring with the scorecards. I believe all of those documents were attached with the agenda, but wanted to bring this to the table and discuss or move a motion. I'm sorry, Greg, I shouldn't say move a motion, but discuss moving a motion to approve what we've already used from last year with the addition of some minor edits to those documents.
Thank you, Jamie. Any questions or comments? Susan, go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. It's the first time I've talked today. Aren't you excited?
Good morning, Susan.
Okay, so I think I've brought this up every time the scorecard comes up because my only issue is on the cost effectiveness question, or the evaluation. The evaluation is the same in both the new and the renewal cards. First off, it says measures percentage of budget cost per successful housing placement. And then later it says outcome. I think those should be the same words. And I think that what you mean is outcome, but I'm not sure. So placement to me could mean initial placement as opposed to outcome, which means to me an exit. So I think that should be more consistent, whatever that means. My other issue is more esoteric. It's hard for me to compare. This whole comparison is hard for me because if you're a organization that has lots of outside resources, the potential for your cost per outcome is probably low. If you're an organization that has less resources or uses more internal resources as opposed to referrals outside, then your potential for cost to housing outcome is higher, but you may have a really great program. So I don't know what the solution is to that. I've never known what the solution is to that. I just have concerns. The other thing is, if you're using the median of our current projects, which sounds like you are, we may have some high cost projects that are still in the pipeline that haven't fallen out for any other reason, that we haven't required them to adjust their budgets or whatever. So I just don't like the question, but I understand the need for it. So thank you for listening and letting me vent.
Thanks. Tanya, go ahead.
You know, I was, Susan, I wanted to get clarification from you when you were, I think it was the second item, and you were talking about the comparisons. Were you speaking to the comparisons between a renewal, like the renewal project scorecard, and then the new application project scorecard?
Well, no, because I'm assuming that the basis for the comparison is going to be our current projects. I mean, that would be our only basis, right?
Yeah, and the only reason I brought it up is because I just wanted to speak to, if folks recall, we had a audit last year, a state audit last year, that encouraged us to develop a scorecard that, to the best extent possible, could ensure that we are rating new project applications alongside, or using kind of the same or a similar scale as to renewal projects. But if I might be going off topic, so I just wanted to emphasize that the reason we developed both tools was as a result of that audit and that recommendation.
No, I get that. And so my only reference to that was that this question is on both scorecards.
Okay.
In exactly the same way. So my concerns aren't with a renewal scorecard as opposed to the question in general. And I honestly do not have a solution for making it a better question. I understand the need for it. I'm uncomfortable with it. Don't have a solution. So I'm just venting. Thanks.
Thanks, Susan. Thanks, Susan. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, Michelle, I thought I saw your hand up earlier. So.
Just following up to Susan's comments on the scorecard and the same question. I know we've experienced the same thing where you will, every year when you renew your grant, there's extra money. And so they keep giving us more money. And so you're having to spend those dollars, and it's making it more difficult as time passes because we've seen that our expenses haven't increased at that rate. So if there's the ability in the future for subrecipients to be able to reduce their allocation in the renewal process, we'd appreciate that as well.
That's a great point.
And I want to thank the ad hoc committee because they took a lot of time out of their busy schedules to meet and go over and ask thorough questions. And Tanya, you guys had a great consultant at the table that was kind of leading and guiding us as well. So we appreciate it.
So Tanya, can you address that? Because Michelle makes a great point, and you know me, I'm all about if the funds aren't going to be used, let's reallocate to other projects. So
absolutely. What I think Michelle's request is unique. I will say that, and I think the city of Riverside, just to highlight their project, we're very fortunate because they are utilizing units that they own and operate. So the funds that they receive are used for as operating subsidies to pay for staffing and things like that. But every year under the HUD Continuum of Care program, projects automatically receive an increase as a result of fair market rates. And, I'd be interested if there's any other projects on the line today, but my assumption is that the majority of the projects appreciate the increase. And in fact, the comments we receive is generally the opposite, that the FMR increase is never enough to keep up with the rates of costing here locally. But in regards to what we can do with projects like the City of Riverside, who are in a different position where they own the units and have control of things like they don't have to pay rent. We have a call next week with William Snow, who's head over HUD DC. So Jamie, let's make a note to just kind of discuss that and see what options we have to kind of maybe move fundings around. And Michelle, I hope that I understood your question right. I think that's what you were speaking.
Yeah, and ours are fixed sites. So if you can't move the money, are we able to increase the number of folks that we can assist and be able to assist those folks off site?
Ooh, I like that idea.
So
I like that idea. So
we're not just tied to those units. If we need to increase, we increase and look at other units.
So the question, Jamie, is, and that's an excellent question, can the agencies who have a fixed site use additional funds to pay for like a scattered site rental subsidy unit to serve more clients? We will find out and we will let you know.
Thanks.
Could you even, and I guess another question on Michelle, I don't know if you'd want to do this, but could that even be used for, say, a transitional housing units? Kind of like a continuum.
We will ask. These are all good questions. We will ask.
All right. Any other questions or comments? If not, we will entertain a motion. The recommended motion is to approve the revisions of the HUD CoC program review and evaluation process, policy, and scorecards, as recommended by CoC staff.
So moved.
Thank you, Karen. Is there a second?
This is Susan. I'll second.
Thank you, Susan. Appreciate it. Any further discussion? Not seeing any hands. Anyone opposed, please raise your hand. Any abstentions? All right, that motion passes. So thanks again, Susan and Michelle, for the comments. Appreciate it. So, all right, moving on to item E is Housing and Workforce Solutions Department travel trailers. Tanya.
Thanks. I will make this one quick. We wanted to announce to each of you that during 2020, our department absorbed some trailers that were made available through the state to help support projects like Project Roomkey that were supporting at-risk populations shelter in place. We are now at a place where we can make these trailers available to you. And by that, I mean, we want to be able to transfer title to any agencies who can use these trailers to expand emergency shelter or transitional housing operations. We have a total of 12 trailers that are all located at the Housing Authority office, which is in the city of Riverside. And just to share some of the details, they don't have any generators, but do have full hookups. And Marcus Dillard from the Housing Authority was sharing with me that you can utilize propane tanks to get to get the services needed up and running. But they have full-size beds in addition to 2 bunk cubbies, like for additional adults or children that can be used as additional bed space. So again, these are available. We want to make them available to any of the agencies that could use these to expand their existing emergency shelter operations, or who could use them as a bridge housing, transitional housing type of setting. If you are interested, I'm gonna type in Marcus Dillard's information in the chat box, and I'll say it quickly out loud for those of you who are quick and want to write it down. He can be reached at 951-202-9408, and he asked me to share his phone number. So again, that's 951-202-9408. And these are travel trailers, and they are ready to be picked up as of now. You would need to coordinate pickup, and again, they're located in the city of Riverside. Thank you.
Thanks, Tanya. Karen.
Tanya, I'm just wondering, if you have takers and they're all able to be dispersed, great, but I don't know if it's worth discussing at some point in the future if there's an opportunity through the CFC for a particular carve-out that might have some operating funds connected to the trailers, because I know that's the big thing is operational support to launch the programs. And obviously, if someone has an existing program and they have some extra money in the budget, but I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm not sure if there's an opportunity for the future, if that would help.
Thanks, Karen. We'll explore that. Emma will talk about the 2 RFPs that we have becoming available. One is HUD CoC. Funds for that program can only be used for rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing. And I'm thinking out loud, but there is HAP round 3. I think there's approximately 3 to 4 million that will be available through the Continuum of Care. Those are funds that could be used to support an emergency shelter operation.
Well, I didn't mean to put you on the spot for an answer right now. I just threw it out there for something to think about. I'm sorry.
All right. Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to item number F is the 2022 homeless point in time count results, and we'll hand this over to Laura.
Thank you, Greg. Can everyone hear me?
You're a little quiet, but we can hear.
Okay.
That's better.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Josh, can we play the video first? Thank you. While Josh brings up the video, just a quick introduction. My name is Laura Gonzalez, and I'm part of the CoC planning team. and I had the privilege of working with all of you and the community to coordinate the 2022 point in time count. And we have this great video I wanted to share with you before I present some information.
We have to take care
That's okay.
of everybody in our society. And a lot of these are overlooked. A lot of these people need these services. It's going to be a great, not only time to present them with those services, but as accurate as count as we can so that we put those services to the right area. It's going to be very, very important for them.
This illustrates the huge need, especially right out here in Moreno Valley, to be able to count and get the necessary resources to the place that we need them the most.
It's imperative that we include these individuals in the count so that the community can come together and acknowledge homelessness as an issue in our county.
Well, all the cities in Riverside County are involved, obviously the county resources, but also a lot of community volunteers. You know, there's a lot of people that have the passion to help and to be involved. And so that to me is what's rewarding, and I just really like to see the community take action.
Primarily, we go out really early because we want to capture folks before they get on about their day, and usually that's around 6 o'clock in the morning when you'll start seeing individuals leave their locations. We've done a lot of pre-work to make sure that we're going to the right places.
So we have this year over 700 volunteers, and we cannot thank them enough for signing up to volunteer for this day, because without our volunteers, this will not be successful, because we do not have the capacity to be here on this one day to count every homeless individual that we have living on our streets.
I'm really proud of all the individuals who are out here from the county working, from our city partners, from our law enforcement partners, our code enforcement, animal services. But I'm most impressed with the almost 800 volunteers that are out here helping with this project.
So the interview itself is just basic questions of how long they've been here, what's going on in their situation that has caused them to be here in the first place. And it's just building that quick rapport that you have to do to get their trust.
It's amazing to see how much we can get together and work together and collaborate and work with people, work with each other on offering services and connecting with them in that way.
I mean, I just kind of lost my breath when you said $200 million has gone to rental assistance. And these are people who would be on the streets facing evictions. How many, is it 50, you said 15,000 families have been helped by rental assistance through this program?
I think it's incredibly important that we were able to assist those families and keep the rental market stable locally.
We do this ideally every year. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do it last year because of COVID, but the reason we do this is not only to get a sense of how many homeless individuals are not only in Palm Springs, but throughout Riverside County, but more importantly, it helps us access resources from both the federal and state government. It also gives us a really good idea of certain demographics that we need to address, whether they're seniors, whether they're youth, whether they have mental health issues and substance use issues. So it is a really critical part of our overall homelessness continuum of care in the county.
Yes, it was really nice to see so many familiar faces in that video, especially a lot of CoC partners providing support. We would not be able to conduct an accurate count every year without your support. So we're very grateful of your participation. Josh, did you want to share the PowerPoint?
Yeah, it's being pulled up right.
Thank you, Josh. So today I'm just going to give you a very high level presentation about kind of what we've been working on after the point in time count, specifically the post count timeline. We've done a lot of work. Post count is just as busy as the planning portion of the count, and we definitely work with a lot of our partners to analyze the data and be able to provide all of you with reports about what we found out regarding unsheltered and sheltered individuals in Riverside County. Did you want me to try and share it, Josh? Oh, there you go. Thank you. Does that okay, there. So like I said, just a timeline about what we've been doing post count. As you may recall, the general count was end of February on the 23rd. The youth count also started on the 23rd, and we had other specialty counts that we conducted. We are working with Urban Initiatives as our partner for data analysis. They've been great partners to work with. They know what they're doing, and we're very confident in their ability to appropriately analyze the data. So they started off by scrubbing the data and the deduplication process, which we always talked about during the count. We wanted to avoid as much duplication, but it does happen. So that was part of the data analysis phase. And then we also began we submitted the sheltered and unsheltered count data to HUD, which was a great kind of step towards the direction of post-count activities. Submitting that data is a great feeling. We've completed that requirement from HUD. The data looks good, and it's a great achievement. Then we started working on some data summaries and creating an infographic that I will be sharing with you today. And we also, as part of kind of sharing this data, we do have some steps that we need to follow in terms of sharing with executive office and the Board of Supervisors staff as well. As some of you might know, yesterday, Heidi Marshall, our director, presented the infographic to the Board of Supervisors. We got great feedback and a lot of support from the Board of Supervisors consistently throughout the planning process, the implementation of the count, and at data analysis phases. They're so supportive, and we really appreciate that. And then there was also a press release that was distributed in the community, so you may have also seen that as well. And I am here today to present to all of you the results and share kind of what the data looks like and what it's telling us. After today, we will also share the infographic with our city leaders and point in time count leads who had such an important role in conducting the count. We are also working on the dashboards for the count that will give you a lot of information, specifically city level and district level summaries and information. We are also working on the methodology report, really giving our partners a good understanding of how we planned and how we implemented the count in accordance with HUD guidelines. And then finally, as we have in previous years, we are planning to conduct a community debrief, sharing once again the data that we collected with our community partners that are maybe not part of the CoC, and just making sure that everybody is able to look at the data, but also know where they can access it for future reports or any information they might need for the 2022 point in time count. Next slide, please. So this is the infographic. I believe that it is included in the link for this meeting. Next slide, please. And just wanted to point out, I know we're a little bit tight on time, but I just wanted to point out kind of the major highlights of the 2022 point in time count. 3,316 individuals were counted for the 22 count. Unsheltered, we have 1,980 individuals, and for the sheltered count, we reported 1,336. The infographic divides sheltered data and unsheltered data. So you'll see some of the district breakdowns as well as some of our subpopulations of interest. Specifically in terms of the sheltered count, there was a significant increase in the number from 2020 to 2022. And it's really important to mention that because although we did have a count in 2021, all the comparisons that we're going to be doing are based on 2020 data. And the increase in shelter data is actually a good thing, right? Because it indicates that more individuals are under our care, and we are working to bridge that gap from homelessness to permanent housing. And so the graphic there with the houses tells you the increase that in the shelter data from one year to another. In terms of the unsheltered data, it actually decreased. And this is the first time in 6 years that the unsheltered count has decreased. So it's definitely a step in the right direction when it comes to our efforts to addressing homelessness in Riverside County. Next slide, please. And the box at the top will show you some of the highlights. The increase for the general count overall was 15%. But then when we do a breakdown, the unsheltered count had a decrease of 8%. And then the sheltered count saw an increase of 83%. And as you may recall, when I mentioned this is an increase based on 2020 and 2022 comparison. So it might seem like a big increase, but then also remember that we had COVID during this time between these 2 years. And then, as you may recall, we implemented the more than a count theme for the 2022 count, which included interviewing people and asking them if they needed services at post count, because we couldn't do immediate services due to COVID. A lot of people said, yes, I do want someone to follow up with me after the count. And so we have a great summary on that we'll be including in our methodology report if you're interested in kind of seeing how that effort looks. In terms of volunteer participation, we always had this fear that volunteer participation would be low during the count because of COVID. And, you know, we still had great support from our community. I think what happened is that we got a lot more city and county staff to participate and kind of take up that slack. And so we were able to successfully recruit volunteers that were able to help with the general count as well as the youth count. That number for the youth count includes volunteers that attended those Come and Be Connected events, the magnet events that we had for youth that we kind of piloted this year. We learned a lot. And so we're going to definitely take those lessons learned and work on improving our Come and Be Connected events for future counts. Next slide, please. Like I mentioned, this is a kind of a high-level summary. So these are the results for the count by district and city. As you can see on the slide, there were some cities, and I'm having a hard time kind of viewing. The top cities can be seen on your right: Riverside, Palm Springs, Corona, and what is the last one? I can't see. Indio. And Indio. Thank you so much. So once again, take time to review that. If you have questions, please feel free to communicate with me. Any questions you might have about the infographic. Next slide. Just as part of this infographic, we want to make sure that we kind of share kind of the impact the CoC has had on our community. I think the important number to highlight here is that individuals, 12,174 individuals have received services, and it's definitely an accomplishment that we could definitely feel proud about. All the other information, please feel free to review and comment or send us an email if you have any questions. And the next, I mentioned that the infographic is attached to the Google link for this meeting, but also remember we created a great point in time count website during our planning phase. That website is still up. It's the morethanacount.org website. And we have been able to also post the results for the count there. So if you ever need to reference it, you know where to go. And then finally, I want to just have the CoC start thinking about future counts in terms of how often Riverside County conducts counts. HUD requires that the shelter count be conducted annually, but the unsheltered count is only required every other year on odd years. And I know there's been discussion and in future CoC meetings, we may want to have that discussion. There are definite benefits to conducting a count every 2 years or biannually. And we can definitely share those thoughts with you and recommendations about the future counts for Riverside County. For now, I thank you once again for all of the support and participation you gave the planning team during the count. It's a community effort, and Riverside County really demonstrates that when it comes to the point in time count, and I'm very proud to have worked with all of you and be able to conduct an accurate count that hopefully will help us design, analyze, and develop programs for the unsheltered population.
Thank you, Laura. Karen.
So not a question, some comments. Laura, you're a rock star. You make it look easy. I know it's such hard work, and I know there's a whole team behind you, but I just want to thank you for your leadership. And I agree with you, and I think it's worth discussing the value of a biannual unsheltered count. I think we can look at the comparisons now and talk about that in the Continuum of Care meeting. But I think as you make those recommendations to us, I think it would be also helpful for you to inform us on staffing resources, funding, and how we can best use those resources. So just a couple of things to keep in mind.
Thank you, Karen.
Any other questions or comments? Right. Laura, I'll echo. I've said, oh, go ahead, Gina.
I just kind of want to give my personal opinion that I don't think a biannual is appropriate. I think annually, both the results and the future needs to be evaluated. How can we properly prepare for the next wave of homeless people? Because they're not going to disappear. And waiting 2 years to count the unsheltered people is putting our whole system that you've been working so hard to set up kind of in peril, I think, because you cannot then, you're like doomed to fail. You won't be able to know how many you need to serve and what kind of resources you're going to need so that they move from the unsheltered to sheltered. And of course, the sheltered part is the success story.
Thank you, Gina, for that feedback. We will definitely bring those discussion topics to future CoC meetings so that as a collaborative, we can discuss and take those points into account.
Yeah, and I would add on too, especially with the implementation of Clarity and discussions we're having about inputting outreach better, getting a better idea of what our ongoing population is. So I know staff's working on that as well. Laura, I'll echo Karen's comments, and I've said this at a few meetings. This wouldn't have come off without a hitch, without your leadership and your team's work. So really great job. Appreciate the work. So.
Thank you. Thank you for those kind words. We really appreciate it.
I know we're running up against the timeline. We just have a few things left, and thanks for everybody for hanging in. As I said, it was going to be a busy but productive meeting today. So item number 5 is a standing items. Not a big Board of Governance update, just a reminder the next meeting will be in June. We will be looking for nominations to fill 5 vacancies, so keep an eye on that email from staff. Item B under 5 is the CoC HMIS lead agency. I know there's a report within the packet, but Emma, did you have highlights you wanted to look at or comment on?
I do. I have a brief presentation that I'm going to share, and I know that we are just out of time, so I'm going to go through it very quickly. Josh, am I able to share my screen? Let's go in here. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so just some quick updates. The first being our ESG-CV and ESG RFP, an update on HAP and YHDP. So for ESG-CV, we have surpassed our client serve goal, which was originally set for 420. As of Monday, we are at 588, which is why I have the little plus there, because I'm hoping that since Monday, we've been able to serve more clients. We have also surpassed our 50% spend down requirement from HCD. So we are on 55% spend down. And to that same point, our new subrecipient spend down rates have been implemented, putting us all at a 50% spend down by September 30th, 2022, with a possible reallocation of funds for those agencies who have not met their spending benchmark. Additionally, with ESG, we have an RFP that is currently in the evaluation phase. We have $336,000, and we've received 2 rapid rehousing proposals and 4 street outreach proposals. Update for HAP3, our application is due June 30th. We have a little over $4 million, and we will be seeking a Board of Governance approval as we are firming up our goals. We're fine-tuning our goals, and we'll be bringing those to the Board of Governance meeting for approval in June. For our YHDP update, we are in the process of formulating focus groups, which will be held in the first week of June. And this will be included in our youth needs assessment for the application. We are partnering with RCC, UCR, and Urban Initiatives to conduct these focus groups and to develop our questions. And the YHDP application is due June 28th with a goal of submission by June 23rd, because here at the CoC, we like to be early. Current and upcoming RFPs, we have the 2021 ESG RFP. We've had our first evaluation meeting held today. And again, we will be bringing those to the Board of Governance agenda with our recommendations from the evaluation committee in June. We have the 2022 HUD-NOFO, 13 million renewal projects plus DV bonus. And the HAP round 3, and again, we will be bringing the goals to the Board of Governance in June, and the CoC will receive an update in July of 2022. And that is it.
Thank you, Emma, very much. Susan.
Yeah, the HHAP round 3, when is it going to be released? Because I haven't seen it. Is it released now?
Roshana. Susan, I'm going to have Roshana unmute herself because she can provide an update.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry about that. I've been off camera because my internet is slow. But HAP3 has been released through the state. So that's our June 30th application deadline.
Okay,
and
so
after that, we will submit the RFP for that funding.
Thank you for that clarification. That was freaking me out.
Good question, Susan. Thank you. Any other questions on that?
Good job, Emma.
Great recap, Emma. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, moving on to CS lead update. Rel?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Meryl Cabazon, and I am the Social Service Planner CES Coordinator with the HOPE program with Behavioral Health. Do we have April's report available? If not, I do have it up if it would be easier and faster for the sake of time to share my screen.
Yeah, thanks, Meryl.
Okay. Seems like we're all on the struggle bus today with these issues. Alrighty, I hope everybody can see that okay. From last month's report to this month, there has been an increase in calls to the Home Connect 800 number. There has also been a slight decrease in the VA SPDATs received in the month of April. However, I'm sorry? Okay. Wasn't sure if that was the question. With all referrals being made, there has also been an increase in the outstanding home connections on the report. However, we are working with agencies just to create a more uniform process when returning home connection referrals with outcomes, so we can go ahead and keep that list as updated as possible. Before moving on to brief CES updates, does anybody have any questions regarding this report?
Not seeing any hands, Meryl.
Alrighty, awesome. Alrighty, so CES updates. We are happy to announce that Home Connect has officially transitioned to becoming a call center. Last week on Tuesday, Home Connect staff were trained in the functionalities of call center and the call center software. The call center was fully implemented and took effect the following day on Wednesday, the 18th. So this is something that I'm super excited about, as we will be able to pull data from these calls using the call center software. Yesterday in the CES Community Partnership meeting, I did announce that there will be additional clarity trainings facilitated in an effort to assist agencies become more comfortable and more familiar with day-to-day clarity tasks. We will be facilitating more of these clarity trainings, as there are many components to clarity and many steps to cover when completing a task. I figured it would be best to break down the topics down to where it's not just information overload for attendees. The goal is really for agency users to be more comfortable with clarity on a daily basis and implement the clarity workflow within these trainings. The last CES update I do have for you all is we are one step closer to facilitating our first outreach coordination call with behavioral health staff, county staff, and community partners and agencies. I did speak about it in last month's meeting, but just as a reminder, it is in collaboration with HWS. The outreach coordination calls are intended to not only coordinate more outreach efforts between agencies, but also to help train, educate, and support outreach staff in all things outreach. We are hoping to facilitate our first meeting on June. It is a tentative date. However, this will not be a community meeting, as we hope to provide case conferencing within these meetings. Confidentiality agreements have been provided to intended attendees, and we are waiting to receive those back so we are able to send out the first calendar invite for the meeting. That does bring me to the end of my CES updates. Are there any questions for me before I turn it over to the chair?
Don't see any hands.
Awesome. So I'll go ahead and return it over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Meryl. Appreciate it. So item number D, we're almost done, folks. Housing resource update. I wanted to play another success story, and I want to give a shout out to Anise Smith from CVAG and the CV Housing First on this. So Josh, if you want to roll the video.
The Body Deli, the must-see destination for organic raw beauty. Visit your nearest location today.
An I-Team investigation is uncovering the successes and failures of a program targeted at identifying the chronically homeless and getting them off the streets for good.
News Channel 3's Jeff Stahl brings you inside this newest effort in his report, Uplift Our Homeless.
Thank God I'm still alive.
Leonard McGinty is grateful to have a roof over his head and no longer be homeless.
I love every minute of it because it's warm at night. I don't have to worry about who's to come running through that park, shooting or chasing somebody, or who getting beat up. I don't have to worry about none of that. When I lock that door, I know it's not going to open until I do.
Homelessness and addiction are things that McGinty knows all too well. For 12 years, he sought help at Indio's ABC Recovery Center, Martha's Village and Kitchen, and the Coachella Valley Rescue Mission. But most recently, living in his car here behind Indio's Dr. Carry-On Park.
Who's to say what's to take place in a public park?
He prays those days are finally behind him.
And when they said they was going to help me, put me in a place to stay, this is what they did.
As he shows off his temporary apartment in downtown Cathedral City, McGinty takes pride in finally accepting help from the Coachella Valley Association of Governments CV 200 program. It's a list of our area's chronically homeless who don't want to be in a shelter and have frequent contacts with police.
Something like homelessness, you see that same person on the corner every day for the last 3 or 4 years, and you just think, is there any way we could help that person? And we are.
CVAG Executive Director Tom Kirk says local cities are kicking in $100,000 each this fiscal year ending in June, along with tribes, $300,000 from the county, $500 from the Desert Healthcare Foundation, plus grant dollars to address homelessness through the CV Housing First budget. It adds up to $1.4 million.
And we're reaching out to them, putting them into permanent housing, helping them get their records straight, but sometimes even helping them get a job, helping them sign up for government benefits.
Last year, the CV 200 placed 144 homeless people into temporary homes. 32 returned to the streets, program failures, but 75 moved into permanent housing, a more than 2-to-1 success ratio.
They have the rules.
McGinty's case managers have helped him obtain an ID and Social Security cards, medical insurance, and connected him with Social Security supplemental income.
Not all the way totally disabled, but I like to just go to work and just earn a living, an honest living.
We've just obtained the latest numbers for the first quarter of this year from CVAG. They show 33 more homeless people moved off the streets into temporary rooms. 5 returned to the streets, but 15, nearly half, like McGinty, have now moved into permanent housing, most with subsidized rents. The average length of stay for successful cases this quarter was 69 days. Longer stays tended to lead to failure. How much does this all cost? CVAG says the price tag hasn't yet been established, but the costs for housing people like McGinty here are higher than those in shelters.
It isn't cheap, but neither is having chronically homeless people on the street. Certainly code enforcement issues, certainly there's petty crime. They also a lot of these clients end up in emergency rooms for relatively minor things.
Kirk says he doesn't expect to solve the entire homelessness issue, but says that this program is helping, not with handouts, but a hand up to permanent housing. CVAG says those who fail aren't out forever. They remain on the CV 200 list in case there's an opportunity or an interest in them working with the program again, while looking for other shelter solutions or partners to help out as well. For McGinty, he's just celebrating his new shot at life.
And as long as I can help it, I won't be homeless never again. Never.
You can get more details on the CV 200 program online by reading the full CVAG progress reports on the program's successes and failures, and also read about other initiatives being tried to get people into homes. For the I-Team, Jeff Stahl, News Channel 3.
And taking a deeper dive now on the issue of getting people into a home they can afford, Riverside County's Homeless Action Plan say the Inland Empire, including Riverside County, has one of the most severe shortages of affordable housing in the nation. There are only 18 affordable and available homes per 100 renter households, and more than half of Riverside County renters, 58%, pay more than 30% of their household income on rent and are considered rent burdened by the Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Thanks, Josh. I really wanted to highlight this as well because it is very rare for a news station to devote that much time to a segment, let alone one like this. So again, great work, CVAG, and as Karen mentioned, Chad, is this has been a regional approach in the Coachella Valley for almost 15 years, but it's really been the last 3 to 4 years that you've seen all 9 cities participate, as well as the county, on a real regional approach. And I know we've got great activity going on regionally in Corona area. I don't know if Brian Ambrose is still on, but I know he's working on Murrieta and Temecula and Wildemar, and of course Riverside. So this county really is doing amazing regional collaborative work. So. And look forward, hopefully, to some announcements on some home key funding opportunities at next month's meeting. So we'll go to the informational items. All of these are in the packet or in the Google Drive. It's not listed on here, but we did get, or I forwarded to staff, the National Alliance to End Homelessness is supporting AB 2547, which is a California piece of legislation it's targeted housing stabilizations for our seniors. So it's a really critical bill, especially as we've kind of focused our efforts on ending senior homelessness, and it's about a $750 million dedicated revenue stream for rental support for seniors. So you'll see the annual performance reports for the city of Riverside, their permanent supportive housing for disabled. Any agenda items that you'd like on the next meeting, just email coc@rivco.org. And we'll move to announcements. And Linda, I see your hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Greg. This meeting has been extremely beneficial. So thank you, everybody. I just want to say a couple things that I don't know if this group or the county has looked at, and it has to do with information. Have we considered putting any type of this information of what is available to people in our libraries? I personally have not talked to our library director yet, but it's such an important aspect to, especially for people who may be on the verge of becoming homeless. Affordable housing is such an issue, and I just think we need to get the word out better. Use any available resources that we possibly have, but also on that, looking at county assistance. I just got a text message from my friend who says I don't qualify for county assistance because our income is $109 over the income for cash aid. Now that's a scary situation. $109 separates this family from being on the street. We sometimes live in a bubble and don't deal with the reality of those people who are trying to help themselves but don't meet that threshold. And I will say my friend is reaching out to Lighthouse, and I'm praying that some way, somehow, they're not going to be put on the street. But getting information out, I think, is just so imperative at this point. So thank you. I've been on my soapbox today, and I probably won't get off it for a while. But I'm trying desperately to help a family. Yeah. So thank you so much, and this has been a great meeting.
Good. Thank you, Linda. And as I mentioned earlier, I wholeheartedly agree with you on dissemination of information. And just so you know, staff is working on that. I know we've had conversations about resource directories in libraries and other community places as well. So just so you know, we're working on that. But Karen, did you have something?
I did, Linda. I just wanted to share, we actively use our library, and we have homeless resource information cards that are on our website, and that library distributes them. And our CityNet case managers actually meet with a lot of our homeless clients at the library because they're already there and they feel comfortable in that environment. So it's a great model to replicate across the county. And I just wanted to close by saying what a blessing it is to have a compassionate elected official like you in this meeting advocating for a family that is in need. I just want to say thank you so much for your heart and the service that you do as an elected official. Not just to Hemet, but for our continuum of care. So thank you. We love you.
Thank you, Karen. And I can say you have my full support as chair.
That's all
Thank
it
you so
took.
much.
That's all it took. So, just so people know too, and there's a website called Connect IE that is an incredible online platform. And they're actually going through a lot of revisions to it now. But really, you can type in a keyword, homelessness, housing, and a zip code, and it really has a great list of services. And it's going to start getting a lot more interactive, not only for like nonprofits and providers, but also for the user as well. So, and what I've already put a note down to, once they get the revisions done, we can have a presentation done for Connect IE on here. So, any other announcements? No, again, thanks. I know we went way long today, but again, thanks for everybody that hung in, and stay safe, and best thoughts, of course, to, and it's not thoughts and prayers, but best thoughts to those poor families from Texas yesterday. So thank you all. We will stand adjourned. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, Brad. Nice to see you.
Congratulations, Karen.
Thank you so much. I got your email this morning. Thank you very, very much.
Okay,
I
we'll
think,
talk soon.
that discussion definitely needs to continue.
Okay, yes. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. It was nice to see so many people hang on clear till the end. The number of people that stayed on was awesome.
Definitely. This was a really good meeting. We had a nice variety of announcements and updates, and presentations, and yeah, really good stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and end this. I'm gonna run to Cap Riverside for a little resource and networking event and open house. So
Good job.
Karen,
Yeah, good job, Josh. I'm jumping off too. Thank you for all the behind the scenes work. You're amazing.
thank you so much. Karen.
Bye.
Appreciate you. Bye.
So